Hello students, welcome to EPG Pathshala. I am Dr. Savita Sharma from University of Delhi. Today we are going to study on module Domains in Thin Films under the paper Thin Film Science and Technology. After completing this module, students will be able to understand the ferromagnetic in materials, domain formation in ferromagnetic thin films. You'll be able to know about the domain walls, then its types, that is the block walls and the Néel walls. You're going to learn about the ferroelectric domains. Then you'll learn about the domain formation in ferroelectric thin films. And lastly, about the dielectric hysteresis in perovskites. So, to begin with the details, let us have a brief introduction about what is ferromagnetism in materials. Ferromagnetic materials are an important class of solids where or which have played an indispensable role in data storage technologies of the digital age. The total magnetization, that is, the magnetic moment per unit volume of a material, is defined as the vector sum of the domain magnetizations. In a completely demagnetized state, this sum total is 0. Upon application of an external field, the changes are observed in the domain configuration. What kind of changes are observed? Like relative widths of domain changes, thus producing a net magnetization in the direction of applied field. The hypothesis made by Weiss was confirmed later by direct observations on ferromagnetic materials. So let us see how the domain formation occurs in ferromagnetic thin films, or how the domain forms in ferromagnetic thin films. In ferromagnetic thin films, if there is an infinite lateral extension such that the film is uniformly magnetized across the plane, the magnitude of magnetostatic energy is 0. But if the film has a finite size, the effect of surface charging should also be considered, which gives rise to demagnetizing field. Inside the domain walls, the spins rotate gradually, leading to a certain width of the wall. The width of the domain wall is primarily determined by the competition between the exchange energy and the anisotropy energy. The demagnetizing field is responsible for separating the film into domains with dissimilar orientations of magnetization to reduce the magnetostatic energy, that is, the long range magnetic interaction. The boundaries between these domains are called magnetic domain walls. The exchange energy between neighboring spins tends to increase the wall width. A larger rotation of spins between two neighbors causes a higher exchange energy. However, a wider wall leads to a higher value of anisotropy energy because inside the domain wall, the directions of spins is away from the easy axis of magnetization. The various energy contributions which are responsible for domain formation in materials are summarized as follows. Number 1 is the magnetostatic energy. Secondly, there is exchange energy. Third one is anisotropy energy. And last and the fourth one is Zeeman energy. So these four energy contributes towards the domain formation in materials. So now let us discuss the above mentioned four types of energy in detail one by one. So the first one is magnetostatic energy. The magnetostatic or dipole energy is due to the magnetization M, which is the magnetic dipole moment per volume, which arises from the alignment of atomic magnetic dipoles. In a solid, the dipoles arise primarily from electron spins, although the orbital motion of electrons usually contributes less to the dipole strength. It plays a significant role for the magnetic anisotropy. In the case of an infinitely extended magnetic film magnetized uniformly normal to the surface, for which the magnetostatic energy can be easily derived, the magnetic dipoles in the film, that is capital M, create the stray field which we denotes by H stray. However, due to the surface charging inside the film, there exists the field which has the same amplitude as H stray but directs opposite to magnetic dipole moment per unit volume, that is capital M, and it is called as the demagnetization field HD. So the magnetostatic energy, which has the same amplitude to the demagnetizing energy, in this case will be described with M and HD as follows. So KD is equals to minus mu naught integration of M dot HD into dV. We can write it as again equals to minus mu naught integration M into H by 2 into dV, which turn out to be as mu naught by 2 into ms square. The second energy is the exchange energy. The cooperative magnetic ordering which exists amongst the neighboring spins in a material is the exchange interaction. The exchange interaction energy or EX between two spins Si and Sj scales with the exchange integral j and is expressed as capital E is equal to minus j ij Si into Sj, where Si and Sj are the unit vectors of interacting spins on two atoms. The exchange interaction stems out of the Coulomb interaction between the electron charges and the Pauli's principle. To estimate the exchange energy in a magnetic domain wall, it is convenient to take all the spins together, that is, a continuous model of spin rotation in a one-dimensional domain wall. The total exchange energy inside the wall is capital E is equals to A into d theta by dx whole square, where A is equal to S square alpha L square into J into NV divided by 2. This represents the exchange stiffness constant. The units of exchange stiffness constant is joules per meter and is a temperature dependent quantity. S is the spin quantum number, which is equals to half, and alpha L refers to the lattice constant. NV indicates the number of nearest neighbor atoms per unit volume, whereas theta is the angle with respect to the easy axis of magnetization. For simple cubic and body centered cubic, J is equals to 0.54 into kb into Tc, that is for simple cubic, and J equals to 0.34 kb into Tc for body centered cubic, where kb and Tc are the Boltzmann constant and the Curie temperature respectively. It should be noted that the exchange energy tends to make magnetic domain wall as wide as possible, since the exchange energy declines upon reducing the angle between spins on neighboring atoms inside the wall. The spins rotate gradually, leading to a certain width of the magnetic domain wall. The next type of energy is anisotropy energy. The anisotropy energy majorly depends on the orientation of the magnetization with respect to the crystallographic axis of the material. It is a manifestation of spin-orbit interaction. Many kinds of ferromagnetic films possess a uniaxial anisotropy irrespective of their crystalline state. That is, this anisotropy can exist in polycrystalline, single crystal, or even alloyed films. In undisturbed crystals, the anisotropy energy will be minimized along certain crystal axes. However, anisotropy can be induced by symmetry breaking of the crystal structure at the interface and surface, by anisotropic modulation of atoms, or by alignment of surface interface defects. Zeeman energy. Zeeman energy is the interaction energy of the magnetization vector field M with an external magnetic field H. Then the Zeeman energy can be given as capital E Z, where Z denotes Zeeman energy, equals to mu naught into integration of m dot H external into dV. To reduce the total magnetic energy, epsilon, ferromagnetic films create domains of a certain size. That is, the total magnetic energy epsilon equals to EX, which is the exchange energy, plus EA, which is the anisotropy energy, plus EZ, where it is the Zeeman energy, plus ED, which is the demagnetization energy. So the size of domains is defined by minimization of the sum of all the above energy terms, that is exchange, anisotropy, Zeeman, and demagnetizing energies. The transition region between domains magnetized in different directions was first studied by Bloch in 1932. The change from one direction to the other is not discontinuous, but occurs over a width determined by a balance between exchange and anisotropy energy. There are two main types of spin structures inside the domain walls. The one is the Bloch and other is the Neal types. Besides, many other kinds of domain walls exist. One of them is called the cross-tie wall, which is an intermediate state between the Bloch and the Neal walls, and is composed of a mixture of Bloch and Neal walls. As you can see in the figure 2, the spin structures of Bloch and Neal walls are shown. The Bloch wall is usually preferable in bulk materials. Spin rotates in a plane parallel to the wall plane. The wall width of a 180-degree Bloch wall is most commonly defined by pi into p into a divided by k, where a and k are the exchange constant and anisotropy energy respectively. Then the wall profile basically follows a sine law. In thin films, however, a Bloch wall induces surface charges by its stray field. Then the Néel wall become more favorable when the film thickness becomes smaller than the wall width. In a Néel wall, spins rotate in the film plane, as you can see in the given figure 2. The width and profile of the Néel wall are difficult to define. The Néel wall has a narrow core and micrometer long tails on both sides. The core width is of the order of the exchange length, that is equal to P into A divided by Kd on a nanometer scale, where Kd is the demagnetizing energy. So in the figure 2, you can see the rotation of magnetization vector. In the first part, you can say the rotation of magnetization vector in the block wall, and in figure B, you can see the rotation of magnetization vector in the Néel wall. Ferroelectric domains. Originally, the term ferroelectricity was coined in analogy with the similar behavior of ferromagnets, which possess a finite switchable magnetization such as that of iron. So we got the word ferro from the iron, the canonical ferromagnetic material. So ferroelectric materials are those which exhibit finite electric polarization in the absence of any external electric field. This polarization must have at least two stable states such that there is a possibility to reversibly switch between these two states upon application of an external electric field. Therefore, within a ferroelectric sample, different regions with localized orientation of polarization vector in any set direction may coexist. These regions of aligned electric dipoles are known as ferroelectric domains, which are separated by transition layers known as domain walls. Domain formation in ferroelectric thin films. The growth of epitaxial ferroelectric thin films is of prime concern for researchers working in the field of photovoltaics, memory devices, etc. Films are generally grown using pulse laser deposition or sputtering technique to maintain the desired stoichiometry, which in turn controls the ferroelectric behavior of the material. In principle, the bound charges which arise at the surface of a polarized dielectric material are described by the equation rho b equals to minus divergence of P, where rho b refers to the bound charge density and P is the polarization vector. Specifically, in ferroelectric materials, the bound charges give rise to an internal electric field which is opposite to the direction of spontaneous electric field. If the dimensions of the sample are reduced to a certain extent, this depolarization field overcomes the polarization and completely suppresses it. Thus, if the depolarization field in a sample is not screened, the ferroelectricity of a material tends to disappear. However, in some cases, the presence of some screening charges at the sample surface can effectively reduce the extent of depolarizing field. In cases where sufficient screening charges are not available on the surface, the accumulation of bound charges can be overcome by employing ferroelectric domains of alternate polarization in a periodic fashion. As a result, the bound surface charges disappear on an average and subsequently the extent of depolarization field into the material is greatly reduced. On the other hand, stray fields which originate due to the existence of domain walls are also accountable for the total energy of the system. Dielectric hysteresis in perovskites. Owing to the complex set of elastic and electric boundary conditions at each grain, the ferroelectric grains in polycrystalline materials are always split into many domains. If the direction of the spontaneous polarization through the material is random or distributed in such a way as to lead to zero net macroscopic polarization, the piezoelectric effects of individual domains will cancel out, and such materials will not exhibit piezoelectric effect, which requires at least non-centrosymmetric symmetry of the material. Lead titanate, which is written as PbTiO3, is a very well-known perovskite material that changes its phase from non-ferroelectric cubic to ferroelectric tetragonal at a temperature of about 490 degrees Celsius. Perovskite materials are known to have a general formula AbO3, where valency of cation A can take various values varying from +1 to +3, and of cation B can take values from +3 to +6. The structure may be viewed as consisting of BO6 octahedra surrounding by cations A. Amongst the known ferroelectric materials, the materials of practical interest exist in have a perovskite structure, and many such as lead zirconium titanate, that is PbZrTiO3, are actually solid solutions of PbTiO3 or lead titanate only. It has been observed that the spontaneous polarization in lead titanate lies along the CT axis of the tetragonal unit cell, and the crystal distortion is usually described in terms of shifts of oxygen and titanium ions relatively to lead ions. A defining and the most important characteristic of ferroelectric materials is polarization reversal or switching by an electric field. We have seen that the natural state of a ferroelectric material is a multi-domain state. Application of an electric field will reduce or completely remove the domain walls. One consequence of the domain wall switching in ferroelectric materials is the occurrence of the ferroelectric hysteresis loop. The ferroelectric hysteresis loop is illustrated in the given figure 3 below, which shows the dielectric hysteresis process, that is, the domain orientation and macroscopic polarization. We can see that originally the domains were randomly oriented and the net polarization, that is the capital P, was equals to 0. In the next state A, we can see that the total polarization was equal to minus P naught, that is which is the applied electric field. Then in the state B, again polarization was 0 because domains were aligned opposite to each other. Then in the state C, or at the point C, we can see that all the domains are aligned exactly in the same direction, and so the net polarization P is equal to P saturation. Then again at the point D, that is which is at the zero electric field, domains are again aligned and total net polarization P is equal to P naught. So this is how we can get the trace of the ferroelectric hysteresis loop. Beginning from the origin where P is equal to 0 and applied electric field is equal to 0, possible macroscopically if the thin film sample consists of multiple domains compensating each other and increasing the field 1, the total polarization of the material starts increasing towards the saturation value, which corresponds to a state where all unit cells are coherently oriented with respect to the applied field. Now, upon further ramping up the applied field, the polarization in the material is further enhanced due to dielectric charging. As the field is reduced back to zero, the total polarization decreases to some extent but remains finite, and the polarization value obtained at E is equal to 0 is known as the remanent polarization plus PR. When the applied field is increased in the opposite direction, the polarization state starts switching suddenly for a specific field intensity called the coercive field, denoted by EC. Upon further increase in applied field, the polarization saturates and the simple dielectric response is reached again. Generally, the same behavior is observed when the electric field is reversed, and repeated cycling results in a symmetric hysteresis loop with switching events at plus minus EC. In the presence of internal fields, for example, due to charge accumulation of the ferroelectric transistor, the hysteresis loop may however be offset with respect to E is equal to 0, which is a phenomena known as imprint. The spontaneous polarization plus minus PS is usually defined as the extrapolation of zero field of the polarization value at high fields, where the slight decrease is due to the charging. Ideally, PR and PS should be identical. In reality, PS, that is the saturation polarization, is often higher in polycrystalline material due to, for instance, of the formation of opposite domains during the ramping of the field to zero, but it can be very close in single crystals. An ideal hysteresis loop is symmetrical, so the positive and negative coercive fields and the positive and negative remanent polarizations are equal. The coercive field, spontaneous and remanent polarization, and the shape of the loop may be affected by many factors including the thickness of sample, presence of charge defects, mechanical stress, preparation conditions, and thermal treatment. So students, let us now summarize what we have learned in this module. First of all, we had an introduction about the ferromagnetism, then how the ferromagnetism exists in various materials. Secondly, we learned about the domain formation in ferromagnetic thin films. Thirdly, we had the introduction or the idea about the domain walls. Then we studied about the different types of domain walls, mainly among the block walls and Neal walls. Fourthly, we studied about the ferroelectric domains. Then next we saw the domain formation in ferroelectric thin films. And lastly, we studied about the dielectric hysteresis in perovskites. Thank you.